Hey, everybody, it is Trags Mike Petralia coming to you on location this week for the Jungle Roar podcast brought to you by Prize Picks and our great friends at CLNS Media. My pleasure as the draft is quickly approaching to welcome onto the podcast one of the best in the business. And he works for an organization that covers the draft like no one else. That would be Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic. Paul, it is my pleasure to welcome you back to the pod. How are you doing? Fine, sir.
Well, I was doing good until you show up and you're flaunting your Hilton Head residence here. You've got your nice collared Hilton Head shirt on. I feel like you're staring at the beach. I can almost see the reflection of the beach in your glasses, and it's kind of pissing me off.
Well, it's not the Masters, but it is the RBC. I'm going to be wearing my plaid on Saturday. It's a big deal here down in Hilton Head. So, all kidding aside, this is a busy couple of weeks, obviously, for the Bengals and their personnel department. You took a terrific photo of Duke Tobin and the scouting staffs at a local, what would you call it? Local Prospects Day, where a lot of
local
high school
workout.
and college workouts.
UC or Ohio State or Miami of Ohio, or they had a high school connection. It was star-studded Trags.
Well, it was interesting to see Duke Tobin and the scouting staff there. They are not going to talk. Obviously, they're bunkered away and getting ready for what's going to be happening in Pittsburgh, April 23rd through the 25th. And I guess I'll get right to it, Paul. Everybody wants to know what the Bengals are going to do at number 10. You have a terrific 5-part piece that I believe you unveiled today or yesterday on The Athletic, looking into different aspects of the draft. And first and foremost, a lot of people want to know, because it's such a premium pick at number 10 overall, which way are the Bengals leaning at this point?
I keep coming back to corner. I think between the way, I think it's you think it's going to fall with just some of the premier guys. We know who the premier guys are. We know who the top targets in this draft are going to be. I mean, Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Sonny Styles. I mean, these are guys that you're just not anticipating to make their way down to 10. And then you get into the next group, which I think is a fascinating group of which of this group will make its way down a couple of spots. You're talking about Mansoor, Delane, the corner from LSU, Jermod McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, who had the ACL injury that kept him out last year. Ruben Bain, obviously, a name that everybody's at this point now familiar with. And Caleb Downs, the one that everybody loves and everybody wants. Okay, well, will one of those guys make it to 10? I think after that group, there's a drop-off, and I just think McCoy, he fits so many Bengals boxes, or between, his penchant to get turnovers, his play in the SEC. They love their SEC guys. His athletic, but he's more athletic of the two, and we know they've leaned that way with their corners. And I think just thinking that some of the other guys will be gone, I keep coming back to McCoy specifically. They've leaned that way with their corner prospects. I think his upside is higher. I think there would be a thought that, they wouldn't even have a chance to take Jermod McCoy if he wouldn't have had the injury, which is how many times have we heard the Bengals saying that in their first round press conference? Like, he's the kind of guy that you're betting on the upside and the type of player that he is and can be. And what he put on tape in 2024 might be is probably the best individual tape of any corner in this draft. And that's a position that's just sitting there wide open, feeling like it needs a player right now in both the short and the long term for their Bengals defense.
All right, here's a player that I don't think a lot of us have zeroed in on, and I haven't heard a lot of talk about him in terms of being a potential top 15 pick, but maybe I should. Keonte Scott, what you wrote on Keonte Scott in The Athletic. You don't want him to cover outside, but the Bengals would not ask that of him. His play style is everything you want your defense to be about. Explain.
I love Keonte Scott in round 2. At 41, you get into this. There's a really interesting group. So let's play out the game where they don't take Delane or McCoy. Boy, they feel like they really need a corner in round 2 then, because you still have that nickel spot sitting there unmanned. And now maybe that's different if you get Caleb Downs or whoever, but it's different discussion.
Right.
And they feel like they need another corner because what is the long term of signing both Dax and DJ? How realistic is that? They also need depth, really important there. If that nickel spot is sitting there open and Keonte Scott is a dude who is a ridiculous athlete, ran a 4.3, jumped 44 inches, has crazy instincts. Ohio State fans can attest to that, having a pick six against them in the playoff, played good in playoff games, another thing we know Bengals fans really care about on winning teams. He's a great tackler. And Bengals fans know that is something that they need out of that position. He's physical. He's tenacious. He's not like an outside cover guy. He's kind of a safety nickel combo. But he's your opening day nickel starting corner. If you can get that at 41 overall, I think you take that all day. He's the type of player that you want in terms of his play style, personality, his mentality. I just think you love to add something. It's just a lot of things they need more of at a position that they have kind of sitting there wide open stands out to me. I'm a big Keonte Scott fan.
Here's my thought, and I've been asked this on different shows that I've been on. And when they ask who the Bengals are going to go with at number 10, here's the one prerequisite I have for number 10. That player better be able to come in and contribute right away. There is no developing that first round pick like there have been in years past. That player needs to be, as Zach and Duke have said time and time again this offseason, what, Paul? A force multiplier. That player needs to be able to come in, contribute right away, be able to play probably multiple positions within assuming that they take defense at number 10. They need him to come in and be able to contribute right away and contribute at a high level. You agree?
Yes and no. And I'll explain. No, because in my opinion, if you get outside of that top group, the names I mentioned, there's really 7 guys. Reese, Bailey, Styles, Delane, Bain, McCoy, Downs. You get outside of that group, you're kind of hunting a little bit. And you're accepting some weaknesses, or there's a position that isn't as clear for how they're going to impact it. A lot of really good players in that next group down. And a lot of ways that you can figure out how they mix, or maybe there is more of a long-term view. But in terms of like the immediate force multipliers on defense in the first round, I think that's the group. After that, now you're figuring out a new way to use whoever you end up picking, which is why I think at that point you have to now start picking up the phone. If someone's willing to come up and that with that group of 7 comes off the board, I think that is something they should very much be considering entertaining.
Yeah, and that was my next question, Paul. You can read my mind. Of your many, many talents, you can also...
I don't want to be in your mind any longer than I have to be. I tell you.
Believe me, it's a very confusing and messed up place. But anyway, my next question was going to be the likelihood that if they don't get, let's say, the group of 7 that you rattled off, even the group of 8, if they don't get that, what is the window for the Bengals picking up the phone or, themselves calling a team, however that might work out? What is the window for the Bengals to be able to pull off a trade where they actually move down in the draft?
Well, I think 13 to 16. 16 would be a big move, but the Jets have a lot of capital at 16 to move. They've got a bunch of picks. Augment your day 2, and which a lot of people think is the strength of this draft. The Bengals have enough needs that it feels like they could use one more pick there. Anyway, to me, that's it. I think maybe the Cowboys are trying to jump in front of Miami and you go to 12, but maybe the Rams at 13, who are always looking to be bold and move around. Maybe they feel like they need to get up a little bit to get the receiver they want or whatever. Maybe people start getting antsy
Right.
about the tackles. Maybe Jeremiah Love drops and becomes a gem to people. But I think if you look at the Jets, if they feel like they are just smitten with somebody with all the draft capital they have, they could be one that could move up from 16. And next thing you know, you own both 41 and 44 and get a semblance of the same player that you were maybe going to get at
like
10.
a Keonte Scott. I mean, get two of them, for instance.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, you could get a Keonte Scott and you could get your swing tackle, or you could get Keonte Scott and a linebacker. Maybe you're going after Rodriguez, Jake Rodriguez, or Caleb Banks. There's a lot to love about that portion of the draft. There's really, when you get into from the time the Bengals are picking there at 41 until they're getting to their third round, there's pick at 72. There's just a lot of the same level guys. And that's, anybody you talk to will tell you, like, it feels like the strength of this draft is that circle there. And maybe even into the early part of the fourth round when you're talking about the depth of the edge rushers specifically. And so I just, if you're able to add anything in that range, I think you're definitely doing it if you have similar type of grades on, a pack of maybe 7 or 8 players when you're sitting there at 10, which is very possible if that top group isn't available.
I want to ask you about a particular player that a lot of Bengal fans have definite reactions to, positive and negative, at number 10. I'll ask you about that in just a moment. Speaking with Paul Dehner Jr., covering the Cincinnati Bengals like nobody else for The Athletic. The playoff push is heating up and tournament hoops are here, and there's no better way to cash in if you're right on the high-flying hoops action than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. Every bucket, every assist, every win means more when you're playing on Prize Picks. And with their brand new Team Picks markets, you can now pick game winners, spreads, and totals on top of the player picks you already know. So cash in. And if you're right during all of the clutch baskets, slam dunks, and Cinderellas this spring with Team Picks on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app today and pick your first game winner, spread, or total as the playoff push rolls on, and get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup when you use the code CLNS. That's code CLNS to get $50 in daily fantasy lineups when you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Prize Picks Predict is a registered FCM offering Team Picks and Culture Picks as event contracts. Trading involves significant risk, not for all. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, a recommendation to trade any commodity interests, or an offer to open an account. CLNS Media and the Jungle Roar podcast is not registered with the CFTC or NFA. Prize Picks Predict does not endorse or guarantee any statements made by third-party promoters or influencers. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any trading decisions. Back on this episode of the Jungle Roar podcast with Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic. You know who that player is, Paul, that I was teasing before the read?
Keldrick Falk?
No. You didn't read my mind.
He's the one that everybody...
brainwaves up blocking you.
Everybody believes that Keldrick Falk is like, they put him in the Shamar Stewart bucket. And people didn't like the Shamar Stewart pick. They don't want the guy who's the traits player who didn't have much production. It's just like, he's the guy that I feel like Bengals fans are like, no, not him. So, okay, who were you thinking?
If he is there at 10 and you can't make a trade, Jeremiah Love.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Sure. I have many.
It's a tricky one.
I have many. I mean, I first of all, this is not, I don't want to personally, never in a million years Like I'll tell you, I'm just not doing it. I don't value running back that way. Jeremiah Love is an outstanding player. I feel like we're contractually obligated to do this. He's an outstanding player. I think he's probably one of the best running
Sure.
backs you'll see. I don't believe in that position. I believe in where they're at with Chase Brown. I think they have a million needs on defense. I put this in my story the other day. Let's not forget, over the last 2 years, they were 6-7 in games where they scored at least 33 points, and the rest of the league had a winning percentage over 90%. Okay, this has to be about defense, and I don't care. It has to be. There's too many. It's not like there's no defensive players sitting there at 10. They don't need that now. So that aside, that's me. The fact that they brought Love in for a visit, I think, is interesting. They're not going to do it if they're not interested in some capacity or just want to kind of make sure they're checking all their boxes on, okay, should we be considering him or should we not? Let's just meet the guy and bring him in here and whatever.
Two words, due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. But the fact that they did bring him does suggest they're considering it. And if you are considering taking a running back at 10, well, obviously you're going to be interested in that guy. He's a hell of a player. And you could see them be, okay, now we don't have to pay Chase Brown next year, right? Now we can have a guy who could be in a rotation with Chase Brown currently, and next year he takes over and you're still on the running back rookie deal. It could save you some money. The thing is, though, the running back market is not that expensive, and so paying a top 10 running back, you're not getting the value. We talk about value, right. That's it. It's like the difference between what you're paying Jeremiah Love and what you would pay in a Chase Brown extension per se is not as big as what you would pay a top of the level corner or edge rusher or whoever. I'm just not into that. I don't think that is something that they should be doing, but it's obviously something that they would be considering, or I don't think they would have brought him in for a visit. But it still doesn't feel likely that he's even available at 10 anyway.
No, I mean, right. And I don't think he would be, but it's one of those things, one of those scenarios. Look, I mean, the Bengals brought him in for a reason that if he, for whatever possibility was on the board, you'd have to say, okay, we know this about him from bringing him in and talking with him and meeting him face to face. I still don't understand, by the way, and this is going back to last year, the whole Shamar Stewart. It sounds like they didn't do their due diligence, did they? Or they didn't bring him in, right?
No. To me, the Shamar Stewart thing was like, how we always hear how we didn't expect that guy to be there. We had him higher on our board. This is like everybody that they thought they would get got picked right in front of them. It was like a couple days before they were like, well, what if literally everyone in front of him on the board gets taken? Correct. Like that never happens. There's always somebody of your group. And then a couple days before it was like, well, I guess we should talk to somebody about Shamar Stewart. And they ended up with him because I think he was I'm not going to say he was 17th on their board, but it certainly feels that way, that he was that number. And then all the guys they hoped to get kind of just went right in front of them, and they had whatever due diligence they had done on Shamar.
Let's go back to a point that I brought up a couple of minutes ago, and that is Dax Hill and DJ Turner and why extensions for them haven't been done. Why do you think?
Because it's not time. I mean, the time that they do these is going to be when you get into the lead up to camp. I think it's nice to say, hey, get these done. They're not getting anything done early. They haven't changed their ways on that. Like they're gonna do the. I mean, Jamar and T were an exception to every rule. Because of what they were. I think these corners are going to be, the conversations will ramp up after the draft, because the draft is probably going to impact those conversations too. And I think they would love to get those guys done before camp starts. There's probably a pretty good chance we're talking about their negotiations during training camp practices. You'll be sitting there in a banana shirt right next to me, and we'll be like, where's Dax? Where's DJ? And we're talking about that. Like that's probably where we end up at. And because that's where these things always go and where they always land. The beauty would be is if they could get them done before camp starts. The reality is it probably gets into camp and maybe preseason games.
Do you see a world where either Mansoor, Delane, or Jermod McCoy come in, get selected number 10, first of all, and start in week 1? Do you see a possibility of that on the outside?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I would assume so. I would assume that you're trying to get your best players on the field. And so you're having that. When I was at the league meetings and I asked Zach Taylor about Dax Hill, like, hey, you said he's an outside corner and that's where you want him to be.
You knew
now.
where I was going with this. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and Zach said, I'm not going to say anything until the draft is over. AKA, if Jermod McCoy or Mansoor Delane come in here, they're outside corners and Dax goes back inside.
Right.
And by the way, if they come in here, I don't know that Dax is getting a long-term deal, right? And so for both, and so you're, to me, yes, you're starting DJ Turner, you're starting the first-round pick, and you're starting Dax Hill in the nickel, and you're putting you're putting 3 really good corners out there, and that's probably the direction that goes. And so, yeah, I would expect that the number 10 pick to start if that's who that is.
So let me take that a step further. Are you assuming that Dax Hill doesn't get a long-term extension in that particular case, or are you assuming either Dax Hill or DJ Turner one or the other does not get a long-term extension?
I think one or the other, but I think the most likely to sign is DJ Turner. I mean, he is the one that has really emerged, become a real guy. I think they love the direction that Dax is going. But, there's just a lot more momentum behind DJ as not just as a corner, but as a leader, the type of guy you build around. I think Dax has some of that, but not to the same extent as DJ. And if you're picking between the two, which they almost always do in these situations, then you end up, you're starting with DJ is where that goes. And so it becomes a little harder to see an extension happening with Dax, although I'm sure they'll have a number out there. Maybe the number they put out there is something in the nickel corner number, but not in the outside top corner number. And that's where their difference ends up being. But that's, when they get deeper into the negotiations.
I know you touched on this earlier and in terms when you were talking about value at the running back position, but Chase Brown, what is the possibility of him getting extended before week 1?
It's not impossible. I mean, they're going to talk to him and want to get something. I mean, I think, how do you not want to build around that guy? I mean, in terms of the player he is, the way he has attacked every offseason, the way he's gotten better every year, the way he's built trust and chemistry with Burrow, addressed his weaknesses. Like, he's the type of player you want that's made for this offense. And so, yeah, I think you're talking to him. I think the running back numbers are pretty clear, like where he belongs in terms of, you look at what the Kyron Williams deal is, you get into that like 11 to 13 million per year range. Like, we see a lot of it. To me, we know where he should belong. So you're either going to do it or you're not. And I could see being like, hey, if you're a running back, if you're Chase Brown, there's incentive, because a lot of injuries, a lot of things can happen that can kill your value in a year. And for the Bengals, I think there'd be incentive to get something done a little bit earlier. You want to get him while he's still younger. And if they can agree on that number, then yeah, I could see it.
What about restructuring Joe Burrow? I've asked this of Skinny many times, and it seems like there's no urgency to restructure. And, Skinny and I have talked about this on different occasions about it's almost as if they got that $7 million exception and they were like, well, that's good enough in terms of what we were going to restructure anyway. So screw it. We don't need to go any further. Or do they need to be more aggressive and restructure and get more cap space?
I mean, they should. Everybody else does. I mean, right. It seemed like every major quarterback on a long-term deal did a restructure or a new deal of some sort right before free agency started so that teams could clear the space to be aggressive and get after. And again, the cap keeps going up. kicking money down the road is not nearly as problematic as maybe it once was in this league, and certainly not now. I mean, it's commonplace for a reason. The fact that they didn't do it, and then in free agency essentially cried poor and not going after more players, is a problem. Okay, it's putting you behind other teams. You're deciding to do free agency with one hand tied behind your back compared to everybody else on purpose. It's an unforced error. I don't understand why you wouldn't, but they can do whatever they want to do to save the position they'd be in future years, but you're either going after it or you're not. And to not be aggressive enough in free agency and have never pulled that lever that was just sitting there for you, I can't reconcile those two against each other. But if they didn't do it then, they're not going to do it now.
Right. Okay, that's a great answer, and we'll leave it that subject right there. You are rolling out a 5-part series this week on The Athletic, taking a deeper look at the primary positions, unique spots in the draft, relevant histories, name to track, and predictions for the picks. How much fun is putting all of that? I know it's work, obviously, Paul, but it must also, like all of us feel, I think, when you do that kind of extensive work, it helps you get more ready and more prepared for the draft. No,
it's one of my favorite things to do. I love the dynamics of the draft. I love getting into the Bengals view on those. And you're right. Like, this is 100% where I come out of this and feel like I have a great feel for exactly what to expect on draft. And it actually makes draft weekend more fun. This part's hard, but it makes draft weekend real fun because you've done all the work. You know exactly what you're looking for in each round. You know where the depth is. You know what they've been looking for. You know who the names that you're looking to see them pinpoint. And I love doing it every year. I always say it doesn't always get like huge numbers compared to things like mock drafts and big boards that people always put out there.
Sure.
But I call it one for me. Like, I love doing this. I feel like I come away smarter, and I feel like if I come away smarter after doing this research and work, then I hope the people that read it will. And isn't that what we're supposed to be doing this for? At least I was told
supposedly.
Yeah, allegedly. I'm not so sure.
Years
all the
ago
time,
in
but
Athens, Ohio.
There was a time when we used to be about trying to make people smarter, and now I just need to shove out another mock draft. But no, I love doing this, and it's one of my favorite things. I hope people read it because I think that it'll make you prepared for the draft as well.
And also something I think all of us in our job, if we're not reading this, we're not doing our job. Your colleague, Dane Brugler, does a remarkable job every year on the beast, and it helps all of us. It's a service to everybody. But I think at this time of year, it's always nice to give a shout out to Dane for all the work he does on it.
I know you hate him. It lives open on my desktop for this 3-week period. The moment is published until I pen my last graph about the Bengals draft. That thing just lives open and searchable at all times because it's the greatest resource you could ever imagine. Worth the Athletics subscription on its own. Forget about me.
No, I won't forget about you. That's incorrect. The only incorrect thing you've spoken today, Paul. But yes, it's open on if I could screenshot it and insert it into this podcast, I would do it because I think there's not a football writer in the world that doesn't have that thing open on their desktop at this time of year. It's just such a great resource. I just can't imagine writing whatever it is, 50, 75,000 words on every single prospect and then some in the draft. It's just an unbelievable undertaking.
Yeah, incredible. And I think you see so much praise heaped upon him when it comes out because anybody in this business understands how hard what he does is. Like, there's a reason he's the only one that does it because it's insanely difficult to gather that much information.
It is, and put it together coherently. He does that. What are you doing this week? I know you do great podcasts, obviously with Jay and with Charlie. Obviously, phenomenal podcast, and everybody should be listening and watching those whenever they get the chance to make sure they're prepared for next Thursday through Saturday. But what else? You taking any time for yourself?
We did. I did Florida with the family over spring break for a little bit. Enjoyed that. Did a little, parasailing, a little beach time. I mean, not quite as relaxed as you look right now, but it felt familiar.
The RBC down here in Hilton Head is going to be fun. I've done a couple of those tournaments. I did Tigers tournament up in Boston. I don't know. I was up in Boston for a little bit. And
what's your connection there?
I covered the Tigers tournament up in Boston a couple of times. The Hartford TPC as well.
Did you have a job up there?
I'm ignoring the question, Paul. And the PGA does a great job. Actually, one of the more underrated events I've ever covered is the PGA Tour event. Have you done a PGA Tour event? Ever?
I still kind of do take golf trips with my dad. We would go to PGA events and
right.
So I've been to a ton of them. I've been Memorial, Bay Hill, back when they did the Bell South at Sugarloaf. I've been to a bunch of them, and they're fun. I love going. I love going to all the events. I haven't covered a ton of golf, but it looks like there's so many good stories there. And I read like nobody's business. Our athletic golf coverage actually has been outstanding. Brody Miller, who has Bengals connections, used to cover LSU. I'm a big fan of, and he's been crushing it on golf. And they have a whole team. They built a whole team of like 4 or 5 people. The Masters coverage was off the charts.
I'm going to be searching out Sergio Garcia and heckling him, asking him to see if he's got any extra.
Maybe he'll break another
heads.
driver. Yeah.
It's just the surreal moment of him doing something you wouldn't do. And it might have even been Brody that wrote this, doing something you wouldn't even do at a Muni course.
No.
Okay. And breaking your club shaft on a tee box at the Masters.
Unlike the rest of us, though, as soon as that round ends, someone just hands him a brand new version of that driver.
Yeah, and he got let off pretty easily. Anyway, so we know what you're doing for the next 10 days, getting ready for the NFL draft. Anything else you want to promote and plug? Obviously, you're a great podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast we'll be doing post draft pods every single night. Walk out for each of those, and then we have the mega mock that we do every year is on Sunday night. Recording that should be up Monday in the feeds, where we kind of go through the first and second round and try to come away with exactly what we anticipate the Bengals doing. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm ready to get this draft over with, because Saturday night, best drink of the year happens on Saturday night. After the draft, head out. I've gone straight. I used to call it best beer of the year, and then realized I was just never getting the beer because I needed something stronger every Saturday after the draft. So it's basically best bourbon of the year. It's one of the few times where I specifically target top shelf bourbon. It's the moment I walk into the bar, and so I'm looking forward to that most.
I'm a Stella guy. That's what will calm my nerves on a Saturday night after 3 intense days. So
stronger. Must be stronger.
Well, it could be stronger, but my stomach would not agree with that, and that's another conversation for another podcast. He is Paul Dehner Jr.
More about your stomach, Trags.
Let's not and say we did. He is Paul Dehner Jr. He does a phenomenal job covering all things Cincinnati Bengals for The Athletic. Be sure. I'm sure most everybody on this podcast already follows Paul and his terrific work over at The Athletic and all of the podcasts that he does. My name is Mike Petralia Trags. Be sure to follow my pre-draft coverage. That'll be on CLNS with a Y.com. And be sure to follow all of my coverage on the X at Trags, Trags. Want to be sure to thank our great sponsor, Prize Picks, and the great folks at CLNS Media. Until next time, you know the deal. Keep that jungle roaring.
Rawr.